Alrighty, folks, we're just going to jump in. But thank you so much for coming. This is our first webinar. Today we'll be going over how to work with Rhino, Grasshopper, a little bit of Touch Designer, and Foveate. So, go to the next slide here. Here's the agenda for today. We're going to do a quick overview of Foveate, and we'll jump into some Rhino and Grasshopper, a little bit of Touch Designer, then eventually we'll have a Q&A, and you can ask us a bunch of questions in the chat. I'm Ki-Tae Kim. I'm one of the co-founders of Foveate. My background's in architecture and experiential design. So a lot of the product of Foveate is informed by my experience working on Archimedia installations, interactive installations at museums, galleries, touring, and then permanent installs as well. Ian Petrarca will be managing the chat. He's the other co-founder. Ian's experience is also similarly in experiential, more in things like theme parks. He's worked on some of the largest theme parks in the world, like Cartoon Network in Dubai, installations in permanent lobbies and things like that, executive briefing centers, so on and so forth. So a quick overview of Foveate. Foveate is a 3D presentation platform built for architects, designers, engineers, technologists to all be able to have one source of truth that they can visualize and build around. It's kind of a Frankenstein baby of Google Slides and Enscape, or Google Slides and Unreal, something like that. The idea is with Foveate, you can take your CAD files from apps like Rhino, SketchUp, Revit, 3ds Max, Vectorworks, be able to combine them with other kinds of media, let's say renders from Enscape, renders from V-Ray, videos, let's say from Touch Designer, if you want to simulate content, screen content that's on LED walls or projectors, and then be able to create camera points of view in space that you can annotate and walk people through, just like a slide deck. So with Foveate, people make interactive presentations, digital twins, and virtual walkthroughs. And the whole idea is, instead of having all this information scattered in different places, we have a single source of truth using the 3D that we work in every day that everybody can intuitively walk through and understand what we're all trying to build together. So it doesn't matter what media format somebody has their work in. The idea is that everything that you would normally put into a slide deck presentation can now be anchored contextually into a spatial model, and then everybody can have visibility into the project. Doesn't matter if they're the architect, designer, technologist actually working in the 3D, or if they're a PM, a manager, director, producer who is overseeing the project that maybe doesn't usually have skills in the 3D, but they would get a lot of benefit from understanding what's happening. And then finally, clients and stakeholders, possibly the most important decision makers on a project, who oftentimes have zero technical knowledge, that have all the power in the project and need to be able to have the 3D information in order to make decisions better, faster, more clearly. The problem that Foveate's really trying to solve is, how can we communicate spaces more intuitively? So for example, right now, we've only been communicating spatial experiences via slide decks, so mostly PDFs, and then 360 tours became a thing. But the thing is, when you have all these disparate pieces of content in drawing form, where clients don't really understand scale, and they can't really see the space from the plan drawing, for example, and then renders, which are not always the most realistic. For example, this Allbirds installation, they are more like collages than they are paintings, or than they are spatial experiences. And then finally, things like technical drawings, which a very few select group of people can actually read and understand what they're trying to convey. So for Foveate, we're trying to answer the question is, how can we build better? How can we communicate our creative ideas in a more intuitive, faster, and easier to update way? So for the benefits of using Foveate, we want people to have a more cost-effective way of communicating their designs. So instead of producing PDF slide decks, where generally people will spend 20 to 60 hours creating a PowerPoint or Google Slides deck, most of that is just spent formatting. They can use Foveate to easily create a 3D presentation right from the CAD that they're already working in, and then easily update that as they go on. So we know that creative folks like yourself work very iteratively, and need to be able to update their work quickly. I remember when I was working in experiential design, we'd have all sorts of changes last minute. And in order to update your InDesign deck, right, you now have to take all your renders again. You have to replace all the links with the same exact names inside your InDesign folder. And then you have to export your PDF, probably go to smallpdf.com, optimize and compress that, and then finally send that and show that to the client. Nowadays, all this work is remote, and people are still only able to present with basically screen sharing that's always choppy in Google Slides. So we're really trying to help people there with how can we help architects, designers, technologists work remotely and asynchronously. So with Foveate, you can drag and drop all your materials in, create your interactive presentation, invite your team members and clients, share it on a link, and then people can check in on it when they have time. So trying to be more efficient with how we're sharing ideas and working around everyone's busy schedules. And then another thing that we really are trying to do with Foveate is help you express your ideas more creatively. Architects, designers, technologists, you are the most creative people working on the most ambitious projects, things that no one's ever seen before, right? So they can be very difficult to understand. By using the 3D and walking people through it like as if you had built a physical model and handed it to them, we want to give everybody an intuitive experience that they would have had had we been 3D printing a model or something like that. And them understanding it is what allows them to fall in love with it and push forward on the design. And then finally, with previs and pre-design in general, that's kind of where all the work needs to happen. And then you can reduce all the pains that would happen on site later once these decisions are made. So the idea is with something like Foveate, you have a sandbox where everybody can test ideas and talk about what's going to happen. And then later, once things actually get to site, down the line in a couple of months or even years, then all these problems have already been foreseen, and we can reduce the change orders and crazy changes, last minute changes that might have to happen on site, which are usually the most expensive part. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the demo phase here. So this is going to be simulating Cosm Theater in Los Angeles. So for those of you who are not aware, Cosm is a kind of immersive sports viewing room. I'll go to their website. And it is essentially a dome, kind of half dome that's inside, sort of like a planetarium, and then it plays movies or live events right on this dome content. So, exactly, here's a great video showcasing it. So this is like an immersive sports bar or something like that, kind of like the Sphere, but more mini. And the idea is that people can come in and be able to experience this sort of immersive film or TV or event together. So we're going to close this one. And then back to here. So this is kind of my rendition of Cosm, very simple. We'll just delete this. And we have a tiered staircase here, a couple balcony seats, very simple design, and then the dome shell. We're going to jump into rendered view. I'm going to show you how you would simulate something like this in some of Foveate's advanced material systems. So with Foveate, what I've done is created this dome here. This is just a sphere that I extruded this curve out of to cut through this the surface here. And then I've gone ahead and created a texture for it. So if we go to the material properties here, you can see I've created a material called video. Now, if you create a material called video and you give it a texture, in this case, I'm using a checker texture so I can see the UV layout, and this has a spherical projection, then Foveate is able to recognize that material, and then any video that you upload to Foveate, you can use that now as a video texture. So, and kind of like I was saying before, Ian and I have a long history and experience in immersive and experiential, and of course video content. Simulating that, whether it's projections or LED walls or digital signage, is super important. So for this kind of use case, what we do is similarly export selected after you make that video material. And then we'll call this COSM. I'm just going to pick GLB again. So there's two versions here. Forgot to mention this, GLTF and GLB. GLB is the binary version, and it's much smaller. So we always recommend using that. There's really no reason why you need to use the GLTF. And then we're going to replace this file. I'll save that, click yes to replace. It's already done exporting. Look how fast that was. And then we're going to go back to Foveate here. You can always go back to your dashboard by pressing the icon here. Foveate dashboard. Leave a scene. Then create a new scene here. Now we'll jump to COSM. Drag and drop that in. And now we have our Rhino model. So here we can also change the lighting and background to the Rhino Studio HDRI. That's the default one. So whenever you go into rendered mode, it's actually using this as the HDR background. We'll blur it out. Oops, excuse me. We will blur it out. And then for Arctic mode, we can adjust the fall off here, how strong it is, the radius, and instead of black, maybe you want more of a gray or something like that. All right, we have our scene. You can also create moments by pressing M on your keyboard, M for moment. Call this moment 1. And I love Rhino, but for some reason it's always so hard to actually step inside of your model. So one thing that we really wanted to do with Foveate is allow you to walk around first person. So you click first person, and it jumps the camera into a first person view. Use left click to orbit, WASD, Q, and E to walk around just like a video game. So if I go into my scene settings here, I can also open up the FOV. So you can see a little bit more in your scene. 65 is pretty indicative of the human eye at this level. So we can go around here and fly to, let's say, this second tier. Get in the sweet spot down here. Create another moment. We'll call this main seating. And then what I can do is take, let's say, the video file. Now, Foveate accepts a whole bunch of different video file types. MP4 is the most common, so we suggest to use that, but you can also use WebM or OGV. So I'll go ahead and take this Kaleidoscope MP4 because it's already mapped to a dome UV layout. And all the videos in Foveate automatically appear as these planes in the 3D scene. So you can move around and manipulate, press play, and they'll automatically start playing. But because we named that material video in Foveate, what we can do is now go to our video asset and change it from video mesh, from panel to COSM 1. And this will now take that video and map it across that material. Okay, great question, Leo. So right now, Foveate's all export based. There's no live link, and that's just because with Foveate, the whole idea is that you're sharing this on the web. So it needs to be a discrete file in order to transmit to somebody else's computer, and then when they join, all the assets are downloaded to their scene, and then they're able to have a smooth experience because it's essentially is front loading and preloading all of the things that they need in order to have a good presentation experience on their end. And if it's streaming, it's just a little bit more difficult because it depends on their internet and your internet and how big a file is. So we can't guarantee that's a good experience. So now we have this video asset here, and someone can just press play, and now this Kaleidoscope video is playing right on top of this model. So if we switch this, say, to another cube map because we want to simulate being inside of a city or something like that, we could go ahead and change the HDRI here, and then be able to change some post-processing settings like depth of field. So we can blur out the background a little bit more realistically. Maybe some chromatic aberration to make it feel a little bit more lifelike. Can change color grading, stuff like that, just like Enscape, and add a little bit of noise to soften the sort of digital look of Rhino. And then we pause this. A lot of times you show different screen options. So what we can do is now just upload another video. We'll take this one. This is output from Touch Designer. And then go ahead and pick this to map onto GLB as well. And what we need to do now that we have multiple videos is turn off autoplay for them. Because now we can go into moments and we can pick a video to play on each moment. So now if I go back here, I press play. Now the kaleidoscope video is playing on moment 1. And oops, I forgot to change this. And now the Trillium video is playing on moment 2. It might be a little bit choppy here because my GPU is streaming this and doing all this rendering at the same time. But with each moment, there's a unique URL. So if you copy the URL per moment, you can see that it changes. This is a way where teams collaborating in Slack or Microsoft Teams, something like that, they can be able to send each other links to specific moments and be able to talk about a certain point of view that way. If someone opens up this link, they're going to come exactly to this point of view. We'll call this awesome. So if I go here and open up this now in a new window, it's going to appear right there in that scene, or at that point of view. And then they went to start playing for it to update correctly. Yeah. We have another question here. Yes, so if you want to add human assets, that's just another asset. I happen to have this folder of people that I've created in order to visualize scale figures inside of a scene. This is just people from Render People. So Render People is a library of all these different scanned people that you can purchase. I've purchased a pack, and then I'm using the GLTF. You can buy different formats. They give you different formats with each purchase, and then I'm just using the GLTF. You could use FBX or another format as well. I don't know why their website's so slow, but yeah, you can just get some free models here from them and be able to use them inside of your Foveate scene. Let's just go to our key takeaways from this webinar. So with Foveate, what we really try to do is create an interface that's very intuitive. So with Foveate, you don't have to learn how to code. You can just use your 3D and CAD files, video files from Rhino, Grasshopper, Touch Designer, Revit, ArchiCAD, SketchUp, Blender, 3ds Max, what have you, and be able to create a 3D presentation that's easily updatable without really a steep learning curve. It's actually very simple. We designed everything to be drag and drop and very easy to use, just like PowerPoint. But you don't have to worry about formatting and kind of all like the busy work that comes with making a slide deck. With Foveate, we really want to help people communicate their creative ideas better. So Foveate is designed to be a more immersive experience than a 360 tour or a regular PDF slide deck, right? It's supposed to have all your 3D, your CAD, your videos, could have audio, your renders and your PDFs all inside of one spot that give people full context to a project. So instead of jumping around from file to file to file and them having to sort of assemble a total vision in their head, it's all in one place. All the media is in one place. You can easily replace any of the assets that are part of your project, and they're just in one link that always stays the same. And then Foveate has all the roles and permissions so that you can keep projects organized. Only certain people need to be on certain projects. Not everybody needs exposure to it. This is a good way that people can be editors and viewers, and links can be kept private until you're ready to go public and show them publicly to people, whether that's through marketing and press, biz dev, what have you. And then Foveate's shareable everywhere. So the idea is that nobody has to download an app anymore in order to view a 3D experience. These days you kind of need an app even to open a PDF really well, and sign it, stuff like that. So we really want to move away from native apps in that sense and make sure that Foveate scenes are shareable everywhere to every device. Doesn't matter if you're on Mac, PC, Android, or iPad. You can just send a link and someone can open a scene on their device and start viewing it in a few short seconds. You can send a link in your favorite chat apps like Slack, Microsoft Teams, email, embed them into websites, what have you. And that link always stays the same unless you make a new scene. But yeah, thank you everybody so much for coming to this webinar. This is our first of many. Really great to have you all here. I hope I answered all of your questions. Please feel free to email us at team@foveate.com if you have any more questions, or if you go to our website, you're welcome to request a demo or meeting with us. We can give personalized demos to certain companies, more tailored to your use case and things like that. And also, we have a 14-day free trial now. So we've opened up Foveate so that anyone can just sign up and try it out, and you get access to it for 14 days for free. And try it out to your heart's extent, and let us know what features that you would want, or maybe what funky use cases you have. But yes, thank you so much for coming. We can have a Q&A session now as well. We can open up the floor if people have questions. Please type them in the chat, and I'll answer anything. Perfect. Yes, so that's great to hear, Gum. Yeah, we really want Foveate to be a super fast and easy way that you can communicate spaces. So you don't really need to know how to render. The whole idea is, even if you can model in something like Blender, a free app, you can make a pretty compelling spatial presentation just from that model. And we hope that Foveate's the way that everyone can align around one idea and kind of get excited about this project because they understand it better. Whereas if you send them a PDF of 20 renders, they still might not understand it.